Okay, so this is my third video now on free, but it's the second in like a two-part series. The first video, which I'll link to like here somewhere with an iCard, and then also at the end of this video, was just about like, how does it work and why does it work and why do I love it so much? Why is it my favorite F word? This video is a little bit more in-depth, so I suggest you watch that one first. And this one is, how does free fit into a marketing strategy? How do we use it deliberately, and how do you maximize its role in book marketing and publishing? So that's what this video is all about. So let's get to it. I have notes, so I might be like glancing off screen, and my hair's kind of, I know in the last video I talked about how like my hair was like staticky, and it's not staticky today. It's like this, you know, my curls are great, but like I keep seeing little, so then I thought maybe I should put up my little Red Riding Hood hat. How's that? Should I do it like this? Does this count instead of the unicorn? I said in the last video that I would, when I get to 500 followers, I would do a video in a unicorn onesie, but does like Red Riding Hood cosplay count? Probably not. No? Yes? Anyway, I like it. No, I'm going to take it off because it's a little bit hot. All right. Okay, so how does free fit into a marketing strategy? This slides right back to the idea that your product design, like series length, for example, is an essential consideration in a long-ranging marketing plan. Marketing is not just what you do after the book is done and in the vault. It starts with considering what you will produce in the first place. I have an entire book about that, Romance Your Brand. So first, the first point, there are 3 points here that I want you to consider when you're planning your marketing strategy. 1, free fits into a marketing strategy for a long series. 3 books at an absolute minimum. Ideally 5 or more full-length novels at full price. Now, there is an exception here. Well, there are 2 exceptions here. The first is if you have a duet, as a short-term strategy, free works for the first half of a duet. Absolutely. But it's like, it's kind of like a one and done. So it's not something that you can have recurring, and that this is going to matter a lot when we get to, like, I'm going to show you in this video, I'll show you how I do it, how I plan out my year, and how I use my freebies really in like a strategic kind of way. And so you can do it for a duet, like it's not useless, but just in terms of like strategically regularly using a free to push a series, you got to have a series in the first place to be able to do that. That makes sense. So and then the other is like, if you have a standalone, you can use that freebie, but honestly, I would suggest like use it better as like a newsletter hook or something like that. Maybe I can do like another video down the road. But today, if you're going to be talking about strategically using a free first in series, or like a free book, you want it to be a free first in series, if that makes sense. Okay. But let's get a little bit more specific about the series and what the series looks like in order to properly maximize a free book. First, you want the books to hook. You want the books to hook into each other. So some people don't like the word cliffhanger, so let's not use that, although they work. But let's talk about teases. Let's talk about hooks. Whatever you want to call it, I want the last scene in book 1 to hook into book 2 by creating questions in the reader's mind. If you are self-published, you can go back now and you can layer this in. All it takes is a few sentences. So whoever book 2 is about, or whatever, like if there's a subplotty thing, but ideally it's about the main characters, go back. And in the last chapter or the epilogue, wherever it is, like you can insert like a whole, you can, even if the scene doesn't have anything to do with those characters, you can add a scene break and then insert a whole new scene that sets it up somehow. If you want examples of this in my own work, Prime Minister by Ainsley Booth and Sadie Holler, the last chapter is actually in the POV, the point of view of the next hero. It's in Max's point of view. And that book is free. So you can download it. You could read the whole thing. It's really good. Or you could just jump to the end, read the last 2 chapters. One is in Gavin's point of view, who is the hero of the first book. And then we flip over to Max's point of view for the last chapter. So that's a way that, like, that's a really you know, you can see the example there, how I did that. I've also done it. I've created a really big tease at the end of one of my Pine Harbor books, which is written as Zoe York. And that would be Love on the Run. At the end of Love on the Run, there is a hard tease about the setup for Love in a Sandstorm. So if you wanted to, you could buy that book and read that, and then read Love in a Sandstorm, because you'll be hooked and you won't be able to not read it, because I'm pretty proud of that hook. Okay. So a few sentences is all it takes. Then when you're looking at the rest of the book, so let's say you're looking at a 5-book series, right? Analyze, are the 5 books consistent or similar enough? If you have a tropey book 1, but book 2 isn't tropey, or the tropes aren't clear in the blurb or at the back matter at the end of book 1, maybe consider just making sure that those are hitting the same notes and that the promise is the same. Readers want more of the same. If they enjoy book 1, they will read book 2 if they are sure from the promise that book 2 is the same idea as book 1. Okay. Again, you can go back and fix this. It might be more work than layering it in. If it is too much work, don't fix it. But keep that in mind as you're planning Series 2.0. And I'll do a whole separate video on Series 2.0. It's a big topic in Romance Your Brand. I am like, Series 2.0 is what will change your career, right? Don't futz with the existing books that much. Series 2.0 will change everything. Series 2.0 is the same series, again, just better and different. Okay, so that's a Series 2.0 goal, is to make the books as consistent as possible. But one thing that you can do for an existing series is similar length. So if you have a short book, like if say book 1 and 2 are kind of the same, but book 3 is a little bit shorter, write a new epilogue. And you can call it bonus content. You can do a promo push on that book. New edition, 2020 new edition, brand new, lots of new material. Do a big like splashy release of that. And then later on down the road, you can do a free push for that series. And again, I'm going to show you what this looks like very soon. Okay. But so you want to do that kind of a promo push on an off month to a freebie. And we're going to explore all of that in a second. And then you want to pick another book in the series. So you've got book 1. Ideally, you know, book 1's going to be the book that you make free. But you want to pick, just as you're doing your kind of series analysis, your series review, pick a second or third book in the series, later in the series, and make sure it works as a standalone entry point to the series. Like the ones that work really well, like Monster of the Week kind of stories, where it's not integral to the overall arc of the series, but it works in and of itself as a really satisfying read. Any free book, well, we want it to tease at the end. We want it to have a cliffhanger at the end. We also want it to be completely satisfying, because there's nothing that will earn an author or reader's adoration nearly as much as a truly satisfying, oh, that was such a good book kind of response at the end. Okay. So book 1 is rule 1 for how does free fit into a marketing strategy is really spend some time doing analysis on the series in which that free book sits. Point number 2. You want to think about your calendar for the year. I very loosely plan 12 months out, knowing it can change in an instant, like you end up in a global pandemic. But when the plan changes, the very first thing that I do is I wipe the slate clean. I grab the nearest envelope, because I almost always do this on the back of an envelope, and I plan the next 12 months again. I start over again, right? And so I'm going to show you how I do that with my actual books, because everything has changed. My release dates have changed for this year. Things are in a point of upheaval, so it's time for me to do some analysis again. Okay. And if you don't want to do this, like you're going to see how I do it, like really rough on blank piece of paper. But if you don't want to do that, you can download a PDF, a very pretty PDF of a blank calendar, and that's gridded out for you to do exactly what I'm about to do from my website. And that link will be in the description. Okay, so I don't know how my hand shadows will do, but let's see how this goes. So what I do when I'm planning out my year, like something has happened and I just want to kind of have like just review my plans. What I do is I make a 12-month grid, and I don't even know if I'm going to draw 12, we'll see. I just draw a bunch of lines here. How many are we at? And I start with whatever the next month is. What month are we in? April, so this would be May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Oh, that's not bad. I did 12. Okay. So March. Oh, no. May. June. Already making a mistake. July. August. September. October. November. December. January. February. March. There we go. So I have the months across the top. And what I want to do is have a row for each series, including backlist series. So my first series is Pine Harbor, which is like a new backlist. I just finished book 8 in October of last year. It came out. And then the next line for me will be Kincaid's of Pine Harbor, which is the same town, just a new series, new first in series. And then in the same category, we have Wardham, which is another small town, like it's its own timeline, own series. And then I have my Seals Undone. And this year I'm only going to have one new release in Kincaid's of Pine Harbor. All the rest of these series are backlist books. And I have Camp, Firefly Falls, Seals, and all the way down to the bottom. And so, you know, those of you that know that I write as 2 people, I do a separate calendar for Zoe and a separate calendar for Ainsley. So I'm only going to do this with my Zoe books. And then I have one more Seal series, which is my Hot Caribbean Nights. And then finally, I have one off-brand Vikings in Space trilogy. Okay. So what I do after I have written my series down the left-hand side and the months across the top, the very first thing is I put in my new releases. So I have book 1 new in Kincaid's of Pine Harbor. So in June, I have a new book coming out in that series. It's the first in the series. And then because, so I said I only have one this year, but because I work on a rolling 12-month schedule, book 2 is probably going to come out in January. And that is all that I am going to do on that line, because until I have like 4 or 5 books in that series, I'm not going to make book 1 free. However, it is related to the first series. So halfway between those 2, so sorry, if I had any other new releases, I would also plot them on, but I'm done with my new releases. I'm only going to have 2 new books out in the next year. The next thing that I do is I think about how can I support my new releases best, which is with a free book that directly relates to that. So the hero of book 1 in this series, there is a book in this series, book 7, that he is on the page, and in the epilogue of that book, his storyline is teased. So somewhere in here, 7 free, I might hope to get a book bub. I always think about, can I get a book bub before I make a book free? So I'm going to try and get a book bub on book 7, which funnels into book 1, thus hopefully driving more sales before the release of book 2, right? So I put up my new releases on first, I pick the midpoint, and then I try to have a free that funnels in this direction, if that makes sense. Always think in terms of funnels when you're planning free books. Okay, so then I have something in June, September, and in January. The next thing that I'm going to want to think about doing is I just did a series rebrand, like new covers on these 3 series. So my next option might be a series rebrand for Pine Harbor. So what I could think about doing is kind of like August and October. I could do the series rebrand before book 7 comes out. That's not a bad option. So that the BookBub would be pushing it, like would be showing a new brand to people. That's not a bad option at all. So I'm going to put rebrand question mark in here, which would give me something to do in those months. And the other thing that I have going on with this series is that I am currently, well, I'm not at the moment, but I'm going to. I have line edits on book 1 because I didn't use the series that I use, the editor that I used for these 2 series. Now, I didn't use when I wrote book 1 and book 2 of Pine Harbor. So I had her do a line edit on the first book in the series. And I want to relaunch that at some point. And it would make sense to do that with a rebrand. However, I don't know that I'll be able to get it done by July. Maybe. So what I could do is do the rebrand, announce the re-release of book 1, and maybe even put book 1 up for pre-order. Like possibly. I just don't know what that would do to my metadata connection if I'm going to do a BookBub here, because I don't just want this BookBub to funnel to here. I want it to sell through to the whole series. So what I could do is I could hustle and get those line edits done and get book 1 out here. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Well, for the purposes of this, like I'm gonna write it down. I don't know if I'm gonna actually get it done. Book 1 relaunch, and then a rebrand. And so even though I say like 1 event a month, this is quite the undertaking, both a relaunch and then an overall rebrand. So I might stretch that activity out over 2 months, and then that's 2 months of activity. Particularly in times like now, you can combine months, but you want 1 event per month. All right. And when you're planning these things out, you kind of want to think about your series first in terms, or your shared worlds, whatever. You want to kind of balance this way. So that's why I said you've got a release here and a release here. You pick the midpoint for, kind of pushing stuff in that same world. But you also want to balance things vertically, so that across your entire brand, you only have one thing in each month. So Pine Harbor really, I could, as Zoe, focus on Pine Harbor completely from June through September or even October, which means I need something in May, I need something in November and December, and I actually want something in November and December to be another Pine Harbor thing. So I'm going to ask for another BookBub on a different book. I think because it's December, it makes sense. Book 2 is kind of like a Christmassy themed book. Book 2. Free. So that is how I use 2 backlist books that are not first in series for free. Right there. Book 7 and book 2 are ones that I might make free for a limited period of time there. All right. And I feel like that's probably enough Pine Harbor promo that would kind of spike a little bit before that one. So then I look at the rest of the months and I think, okay, what else could I do? So maybe in May, because Wardom is now complete, it's a complete series, so I could do a box set. And that would be probably at all retailers except for Amazon, because Amazon doesn't like you to put books over $9.99, so they suppress that by giving you a lower royalty rate at that point. And if you want me to expand on that, let me know in the comments and I can. But at least on Kobo, Apple, those other vendors, that would be a nice little income spike. I also have some Wardom audio, which I could definitely push. I could do a big audio push in October. And then for that backlist series, that's probably plenty. So right now, I also have all of my seal books are in KU, which is Kindle Unlimited. Until the end of June, I think. So 90 days from March anyway. So I think that's to the end of June. So I don't need to do anything else to promote these 3 series. While they're in Kindle Unlimited, I'm going to use some of their free days, but to me that is just kind of like a set it and forget it. If I didn't want to do this one and I didn't have a new release, this could be all that I do. So actually this box set, if I don't end up doing it, it's not a big deal. It can get moved down here and I could have a Wardham push here. And there you go. From suddenly, I am now reminded, just by writing it down. I mean, this I'd already done and my new release was already planned. But suddenly I'm reminded that between now and September or October, I actually have a fair amount of marketing, a fair amount of elements already in my marketing plan. So now and of course February and March next year, it's okay if that stays a little hazy, but we'll kind of scribble down some ideas. So for November, if I could do something with my Vikings, again, maybe like a bundle, maybe a box set. And there's only 3 of those. So I could definitely bundle those 3 and put that on Amazon because it wouldn't be more than $9.99. And then I could also do a Kindle Unlimited run with that. I kind of, I'm agnostic when it comes to Kindle Unlimited, particularly for backlist series. It's not a bad use of them. And right now when people are kind of watching their dollars, I think that it has its uses, especially if you're like me and you've got a backlist that's just sitting there otherwise. So there you go. That's something there. My Vikings. And this would only be a little income bump, but hey, like use your backlist. Even something which is off-brand. Can you see me pointing here? Even something that is off-brand and not, it doesn't drive sales to anything else, but just in and of itself, you can find some new readers just for those books. And then here, obviously, like I'm doing the seal stuff here, and then over the summer, I might not do very much with it, but then I'm going to want to start doing more seal stuff again. These are books that honestly, like I could revamp the covers over and over and over again. And I don't know that the ones that I do all my covers myself, as you can see some of those videos. So yeah, so I might do a cover redo, rebrand. That's the word I'm looking for. Particularly for my Hot Caribbean Nights. Actually, you know what? Just looking at this, just for the sake of planning, I think that I could probably write a Christmas story. I don't know. Maybe number 5, new? I don't know. Do you think I could squeeze it in? Maybe. And if I can, then that would really goose my December. And then if I did that, then I would do try and get a book bub on number 1 free. And then that I don't know what I want to do in February, but I like to do, this year for February, because we had the leap year, we did a cross promotional. Oh, there's one of my Christmas cards falling down. We like to do a cross promotional free blitz. And so maybe, it's okay if that's just your event, something cross promo-y. Seals, cross promo. Or maybe just a seals email, email marketing, something, I don't know, but push seals in February. And then if you kind of come up with a bunch of things to do around that, that can be it. That can be the only thing you do that month. It's okay to have down months, but this is how, with only two releases, this is how I fill an entire year. So I hope that this was helpful, and really, gets kind of specifically into the examples of how I use free and how I kind of actively think about, why am I doing a free book? What does it connect to? What do I want it to funnel to? Kind of that kind of active thinking. Okay, so once you do that, then the next thing to do, the next step in making sure that this is a maximized marketing strategy is you do it all over again. Do it again with another series. You can hammer a series to death, right? You can be like, I want this series to be a success, but that's not how it actually works. If the market doesn't respond to making the first book in the series free, move on. That doesn't mean move on forever. Book trends are cyclical. I have series that have bounced back after I have put them on hiatus after they've laid fallow for quite some time. So it's not forever, but just move on and write something else. In Romance Your Brand, I talk about some of the amazing advice that I got before I published the first time and how it shaped me as a genre fiction author. And now 50 books on, I can say this advice, it was true. And it has stuck with me. And when times are tough, when I'm struggling, it is still the advice that I go to. One of those pieces of advice, well, it was a conversation that I observed. And the question was, what is the best book that you've ever written? And Kate Pierce, who is an absolute legend, said she hadn't written it yet. That was almost 10 years ago. And I bet that she would say the same thing now, same thing today. So would I. After 50 books. My best work is still to come. And so is your best work. It's still to come. Stay focused on that. Don't get stuck in trying to make your current series like some sort of hit if it's not. Don't get stuck in trying to connect with an audience that isn't connecting with the book. That's okay. There'll be another audience later on. But more importantly, you can produce new works that will please the audience that you have found. Your new work will be better, it will be tighter, and it will be more on brand. So make that your next focus. I'm going to do a whole separate, as I said, I'm going to do a whole separate video on Series 2.0 and what that really means. I might do it next week. Please let me know in the comments if you want that content sooner or later, because I've got a bunch of other questions that I'm also going to try and answer over the next little while. But in the meantime, what I encourage you to do is do what I just did and plan out the next 12 months, what the next 12 months looks for you, where free fits into that, and then stick, change the plan as often as you want, but like stick to some form of a plan for your freebies. Don't panic, and plan the next series long range and plan which books in that series will make free and which ones will never be made free. So to recap, free works best in a metadata connected series of similar books. In order to maximize its efficiency, you want to plan out a new free price drop a month or two kind of before a new release, and any other kind of book promo kind of in the off months are away from the free. Like make free its own thing, its own event in a month. What else? What other points did I have? Okay, so if you have one or two new releases in a year, and you have a free first in a series, and then you have a free later in a series, that's like 3 or 4 events in one series line. Remember those lines? In one series line, before you even moved on to having a second series. So you could, if that's all you had, you could do that quarterly. And if you have 2 of those, then that's one more than every other month. And if you've got 3, that's a single event every month. And that's before you've considered anything else, like a cross-promotional event, a rebrand, or a box set release. So there's lots of marketing options, and that's how those fit together. Remember, the best marketing plans have layers, like onions and romance heroes. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that answered some questions that some of you had about the best way for a free book to be used as a marketing tool. If you have any other questions or like a really specific example, feel free to hit me up in the comments or by email. And I will be back. I don't even know what day it is. What day is it? I'll be back on Tuesday with Trope Tuesday, and later in the week next week with a Series 2.0 video. I hope that everybody has a lovely writing weekend.